So by now, I'm hoping that you've heard about the brand new PodCourse subscription that Speech Therapy PD has rolled out. For $79 a month, you get over 175 hours of ASHA continuing education with 19 new episodes a month. That's fantastic. Well, they want to make sure that you also know we have a brand new coupon code. So the coupon code is F as in first, B as in bite, followed by the number 20, FB20. And that brand new coupon code will give you $20 off the PodCourse subscription. So you get 175 hours of continuing ed plus an average of 19 new hours a month, all for $59 a year. And we cover everything from early intervention to schools to adults to ethics. So be sure to type in F as in first, B as in bite, and then the number's 20. Enjoy your coupon, or as my kin folks say, enjoy that coupon. Hi, folks, and welcome to First Bite, Fed, Fun, and Functional, a speech therapy podcast sponsored by SpeechTherapyPD.com. I am your host on this nerd venture, Michelle Dawson, MS, CCC, SLP, CLC, the All Things Peds SLP. I am a colleague in the trenches of home health early intervention right there with you. I run my own private practice, Heartwood Speech Therapy, here in Coletown, South Carolina, and I guest lecture nationwide on best practices for early intervention for the medically complex and fragile child. First Bite's mission is short and sweet, to bring light, hope, knowledge, and joy to the pediatric clinician, parent, or advocate.
By way of a nerdy conversation, so there's plenty of laughter too.
In this podcast, we cover everything from AAC to breastfeeding,
ethics on how to run a private practice,
pediatric dysphagia to clinical supervision,
and all other topics in the world of pediatric speech pathology. Our goal is to bring evidence-based practice straight to you by interviewing subject matter experts.
To break down the communication barriers so that we can access the knowledge of their fields.
Or, as a close friend says, to build the bridge.
By bringing other professionals and experts in our field together, we hope to spark advocacy, joy, and passion for continuing to grow and advance care for our little ones.
Every fourth episode, I join in. I'm Erin Forward, MSP, CCC, SLP, the Yankee by way of Rochester, New York transplant who actually inspired this journey. I bring a different perspective, that of a newish clinician with experience in early intervention, pediatric acute care, and nonprofit pediatric outpatient settings.
So sit back, relax, and watch out for all our squirrels and enjoy this geeky gig brought to you by SpeechTherapyPD.com. Happy end of April, everybody. So today's guest is basically the queen of gratitude, and I am talking about none other than the lovely Marie. Can you say it, love?
I sure can. Muratalla.
Thank you. Perfect. I could not say it that pretty, and I wanted to be respectful. Marie Muratalla. I tried.
Hey, that was like really close.
Almost. This is why I teach people to swallow and not artic. Ta-da! Disclaimer. MSCCC SLP, the fabulous SLP behind Thanks Morris on Instagram. So here's the deal. We are a year and change into this pandemic, and truth be told, some days are better than others for me. Some days are hard. Parent coaching in a pandemic, caregiver coaching in a pandemic, and or the inability to easily access the daycare workers or the SPED teachers or the early interventionists or the service coordinators or the physicians, because I can't easily pop by to hand off reports to everyone, or I can't easily schedule an in-service to do a training on a new AAC device, or I can't easily participate in an IEP or an IFSP meeting because I don't know, or times don't jive, or we're homeschooling, or internet connection is shot. Y'all, all those frustrations make our jobs difficult. But here's what I can do. I can flip that script and I can focus on joy.
I can choose to be grateful for the aspects of my job that I can do to open doors for my patients and their families. I can choose joy, I can choose gratitude, and I can choose kindness. And when I focus on those aspects, my days get better. So, Marie, thank you for joining us. And seriously, I'm dying to know the backstory behind Thanks Morris. So, hi, welcome.
Hi.
Okay, so but for real, how did that happen?
The handle, right? The Instagram.
Yes, the handle.
Yeah. So when I guess it was back when I was graduating. So 4 years ago now, when I knew I wanted to make my Instagram. Originally, I had no intention. I didn't really know there was a whole Instagram SLP community.
Me either. You're cool. It's fine.
Right? I think I'm still in a bit of a shock that now I can communicate with so many SLPs so quickly, and it's awesome. But I that was not. I never thought about making an Instagram before being a speech pathologist. I just wanted to make one to kind of have a balance, and just more of a creative outlet, I guess. More of a, which is what it is partially is, that reflective outlet where I can post something and write out a caption, kind of like I would write a blog. And a big part of what I knew I would want to share in that Instagram was gratitude and how important that is to me. I didn't know on what level, didn't know it would take off the way it has, but I just knew that it would be a good outlet for me. And so I was kind of, thinking, okay, I need a cool Instagram name. And my boyfriend, he always is giving me nicknames. We've never been babe or hun or anything to each other. It's always been random nicknames. And he's the type too, where the nicknames evolve. He doesn't even call me Morris anymore, but at the time he did. And I really liked that nickname, but that was even my fourth nickname that he'd given me at that point. It had evolved from Maurice actually. And so one day we were talking and I knew I was okay, I'm going to create an Instagram, and I wanted to have the name Morris in it because I love that nickname and it was very special. And we were having a conversation. He's like, oh, well, thanks, Morris, or whatever. And I was like, that's the name. That's it, And he was like, yeah, that's perfect. Because you talk all the time about your gratitude journaling to me. And I know you want to talk about that and all that stuff. And so that's kind of where it came from. And then, now it's kind of funny to me because I'm so involved in the SLP side of it on Instagram. But my name, sometimes I'm I bet you people are confused. Is she a speech pathologist or what is her deal? I love it when people comment, if I comment on somebody's photo, they'll comment back and they'll be like, oh, thank you, Morris. So now it's kind of turned into some people do call me Morris. My own brother calls me Morris now. It's fun.
Yeah, that's a lot better. They call me Spit. Because I look like my dad, except I get my mustache waxed. So, Morris is a lot better than Spit. But, my dad would say, baby girl, I just spit you right out. You look just like me. And I'm like, oy vey, do I ever? Mustache and all? But, yeah, I did tell Marie before we started, I was like, but the catch is, I turned 38. And now when I go to get my mustache handled, dude, the beauty parlor lady has to take care of my chin too, because that's a thing now. So, and all the middle-aged women are like, yes, it is. Ta-da! And I'm old. But okay, all right. Okay, so how did you get to be an SLP? What drew you to this profession? Yeah. Tell me that part.
So to me, it's a weird story, but I think a lot of, people in college, they go through this process of what am I going to do? I was never one in high school that was I know I want to do this. When I was really little, I knew I maybe would want to be a teacher. You could always find me on the weekends bossing my brother and sister around to, and making them play school with me. And when they wouldn't, I would set up my dolls and stuffed animals in school. But I don't know. I was never the most patient child. And my mom, I remember in 7th grade, she's like, are you sure you want to be a teacher? Because my mom's a teacher. And yeah. And she was very profound. Very honest with me. Yeah. Just you're not a very patient person with your siblings and, and not just with them. I mean, she saw me with other kids and was like, you're very controlling. And, but that was the type A in me, I guess, that got me through to grad school. But I ended up in like, I don't know, end of high school, early, because I ended up at community college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, I'm just going to start out in community college. But I really fell in love with biology and wanting to be a biologist. And it was really fun. And I geeked out a lot over biology. But then I took chemistry courses and started to question it all over again.
It's because there's letters in there. I'm sorry. The second you add letters to math, I'm out, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just like, and all the conversions and all this stuff. I'm like, I just want to learn like more about plants and cells. That it's not fun when you have to do all of the crazy chemistry. And I was crying over tests and really like, what am I doing? I'm not happy or whatever. And I mean, I was only in college. So, just was taking on that challenge of really young adulthood. But then I had a course, like in one of my communications courses, we were required to do a community service project. And you had to go in, because I took small group communication, you had to find a place you could volunteer at that had small groups that you could observe their communication. And so me being not lazy, but just like using what I had to my advantage, I was like, Mom, I want to come observe at your school because I don't, want to have to search too much for this one. I know I could observe in like the RSP class, the like a special ed class, because that was something that had interested me since high school too, was maybe being a special education teacher, which, but then I had my mom in my head, like, you're not very patient. So I was like, I don't know. But in that small groups course, I was like 19. And when I was volunteering in the 6th grade special education classroom, but it was like the resource specialist program. So kids would come in for a period and we would help them kind of like work from their mainstream classes. I got to work in groups of like 1 or 2 kids and, work with them, kind of knowing their IEP goals. And I just really enjoyed it. And I made a connection with one little guy. Well, he was 6th grader, one young man, and he was on the spectrum. And we just had a really good connection. I think was doing a lot of the things I do now, but kind of instinctively, as far as maybe following his lead, as far as, getting on his level and just letting him kind of talk when he needed to talk and not talk when he didn't feel like talking and things like that. And after working with him one day on a particularly hard day that he was having, I think she was one of the instructional aides in the class, came up to me and she's like, you'd make a really good speech pathologist. And I was like, what's a speech pathologist? Which I think every speech pathologist has had, like, I don't know. I think most SLPs I've talked to can remember that moment of when they learned what a speech pathologist was.
Yes.
Because I was like, I've never heard of this. And she's like, like the speech teacher, the speech therapist. And I was like, oh, like when kids in elementary school went to speech. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, that's like a person. I thought it was a class.
I'm only laughing because that's true. That's that's true for all of us. Yes.
You're like, oh, like that's an actual career. So then I went home right that day and I looked it up and I was like, dude, like speech therapists are amazing. Like, look at all these things they can do. And I was really intrigued. And then I was really excited because, when I looked it up, there was a lot about like cognitive therapy and the brain science behind language development and swallowing and all of that stuff, like the medical side. And I was like, maybe this is something I should look into because it kind of has like, the science stuff that I'm really into, but there's no chemistry. And then I really enjoyed working with these kids. I loved working with them so much that after that 6-week assignment was done, I stayed through the end of the semester and then went back the next year and helped out in the class because I was like, I loved it. And that kind of showed me like, maybe I should be going that direction. And so I looked into schools in Southern California to finish off my undergrad in communicative sciences and disorders. And then I did it and then went to grad school and here I am 4 years after graduating. But it was just about, I think what really clicked for me was those connections, building having a clinician kind of perspective and knowing that like that connection was so meaningful for me. And it definitely was meaningful for, the students that really, it just made it solid for me. Like, yeah, this is what I I feel like I could thrive here.
That was why I stayed in EI.
Mm-hmm.
It was because I've done inpatient, I've done SNF, I've done schools, I've done everything. But for me, it was the bond that you developed and how you get to be part of that journey. Like that for me is what made EI stick. Because it for sure was not the boogers, because there's a lot of that. So like, sorry, as today, like it's like full blown pollen season of doom. Like the yellow plague is here, and so like I was wiping noses like all day long, and then washing hands and then sanitizing. But like, not my bugs. But like, and then coming home and doing it on repeat with Goose and Bear. So like, ta-da! Also, theirs are the size now; they need to handle that themselves. Okay. All right, so thank you. Those are really raw, honest questions. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Yes. Okay, so you work in a school that has special education, like a preschool program, correct?
Yes.
So like what ages do you work with?
I work with, and I have to say, I love our program because it's a full inclusion program. So I'm in the classrooms, instead of there being like a mod severe class and a mild mod class and then a general education class, they're all in one class.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's fantastic. And I actually last week on Instagram posted a gripe that I have about it, or a grievance, because, you know, we have this amazing program for them in preschool and they spend 2 years here and then they go to kindergarten and it's all taken away because those kids that have more severe impairments or needs, I should say, you know, there's not the supports in a general education classroom in kindergarten or transitional kindergarten. And so, you know, we have to suggest, I feel like my hands are always tied. I'm like, no, they deserve this program, but we don't have it. We don't have the supports and the manpower in a classroom. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at a self-contained classroom or something, you know, and it gets frustrating for me. That's the only grievance I have, because the program is amazing.
It's just, no, I feel that there's a phenomenal program that I unabashedly refer to. It's called Epworth's. It's through the United Methodist Church here. They fund this program, and this is phenomenal. It is a half-day program it's open inclusion. So they have typically developing and then children with special needs from I think 2 to 5 is their age ranges, to go 5 days a week for half days. So like 3 hours a day, or 3 to 4 hours a day. It's only $375 for the entire month.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Right?
That's awesome.
And they open this door and they do, I promise this correlates to today, but like they engage in a lot of coaching and a lot of scaffolding with families for like how to address developmental norms, and they're actual teachers, which is like unheard of. Like people view it as a daycare, but they're like actually certified early childhood teachers.
Wow.
And it's just, and they sell ice cream for fundraisers, and it's legit amazing ice cream. So y'all, in the summertime, check out Epworth's ice cream.
Oh my gosh.
It's really good. I'm like, I will take one for the team and eat your ice cream as a fundraiser. Huzzah. Okay. All right. But for you in this setting, how do you go about doing parent coaching in that setting for early intervention? And why do you feel that this is important?
So, okay. And I'll back up because I didn't quite answer your question. I know, but I work with, no, you're good. I feel bad because I went on my little rant.
It's okay. Good rant. Totally appropriate.
It is good rant. But I work, our program, so it's full inclusion. So there's a gen ed teacher or general education teacher and a special education early childhood teacher. Both are early childhood teachers. They're both in the classroom together with 2 other instructional aides and then the kids. So it's wonderful manpower in the classroom with really well-trained aides, which that's going to tie in a little bit into, talking about parent coaching, because really how I utilize my coaching skills is with the aides and the teachers. But then, I have kids sometimes as soon as they turn 3, because I've had plenty of kids come on their 3rd birthday. Parents are like, okay, you're starting 3 to 5 or 3 to until they go to transitional kinder or kindergarten, basically. And so I get to see them for their full 2 years, or sometimes 2.5, almost 3 years of preschool. And a couple years ago, we asked our district to, which they do have to, I had my little grievance, but I will say I'm super grateful because they sent all our preschool SLPs, which there's like 4 of us that went and did this, we got Hanen certified.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that's, if your district is willing to, if they ask you if you want to get Hanen certified and they're going to foot the bill, like, say yes, because I don't think that will ever happen for me again. We're like, they're willing to spend all that money. It's a 3-day training. It's an amazing training. And so I did the It Takes Two to Talk program, where I became certified to hold parent trainings and coaching. So I learned all, and I have all my, books, I have all my resources and materials for that. But then we go back to work all inspired after this amazing conference, and we're in the like height of our springtime transition meeting, IEP writing, report writing, testing season, and never really got to roll it out. And we had planned on, doing kind of something where it was like once a month or once, every so often we could have parent training nights with, certain parents from our caseload that wanted more support and training. And then COVID happened, and the plan was for this school year to do that. And so now we're all virtual. Well, the beauty of being virtual is I've gotten the chance not only to have more communication with families, but to kind of build up my confidence.
Yes.
In communicating, because, when you're school-based and you're not going into the homes all the time, or you're not having that contact with the parent when they come bring their child to the clinic or whatever it is, you don't, you see the parents maybe once or twice a year in an IEP meeting. In preschool, I do think we have the benefit of parents, since it's their child's first time in school, they do tend to be a little bit more communicative with, making sure they email me, or when I send out my newsletters and stuff, they respond because they want to kind of keep track of how things are going for their little ones. But it's still very hard to, I've opened up opportunities, at certain, like a time in each trimester of our school year where I'm like, hey, like if you want to come into your child's speech session, please do. But usually parents, when their kids are in preschool, they're like, this is my time to either go do what I need to do for me, go grocery shopping, go do all those things. And so it's a little bit harder, I think, since their speech sessions are built into their school day. So with virtual therapy, I've been able to really use some of those skills that I got at the Hanen training, because my ultimate goal is to help parents feel empowered to do what I'm doing in speech sessions with their child. So I've, another way that I'll do it too is even in IEP meetings, I'll bring my little, my speech room news handouts, sometimes my Hanen handouts, where I'm like, this is where your child's at, and these are the things you can do to support that next level. But again, it's just hard when I can't be like, we're going to do a parent training program, and I'm going to have you help me come up with the goals you want, because that's the whole Hanen thing. The parent gets to be, talking about the goals. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, with the virtual though, I have really, with a good handful of my students, I have really focused on that. And, when their IEP meetings are coming up and I'm doing parent coaching sessions, I'll just be like, what goals are you feeling? What's functional in your home? So that way we can support them, since they are at home during virtual learning.
Yeah.
I can't, not that I can't do it, but some of the, maybe more educational types of goals, or the style of a school-based, even in preschool, school-based communication goal, it's definitely, we're looking at how they function in a classroom. But most of my kids, some of them are back, but some of them still aren't. And so we're like, they're functioning at home. So let's just talk about what's going on at home. That's how I'd prefer to write goals anyways.
Yes. Okay, so I've got like 400 different thoughts here.
Sorry.
And I'm so, no. I'm so excited. This is amazing. One, I just did the Google on the Hanen, and I'm now going to have to reach out and get that person on First Bite. So let's put a prayer on that. And then two, all of their workshops are full right now. So I'm going to have to get on the wait list, because I did look at that while you were talking. Okay. With parent coaching, you hit the nail on the head when you said we have to find out what's functional for them. Y'all, we are so guilty as a profession of saying, okay, well, this is the developmental norms. This is what we need to work on. This is where the child should be according to Brown stages of language development.
Right.
And like, I am so personally guilty of having done that for an extended period of time. But we have to look at what's functional for the family. And that means you have to start with the questions of like, what's the easy part of your day? What goes well? Okay, so what's the hard part of your day? All right, so talk to me about that scenario. Is it like we're struggling to pick out a food to eat, or like we're really struggling to get dressed in the morning? I did that as a mom. I had to sit back and analyze what was going on with Bear. And like with Bear, getting dressed in the morning, putting on his shirt was a train wreck. And we couldn't figure out what it was. And you know what? We finally figured it out when like I was like, I can't get anything over his head unless I like stretch the neck out. I mean, dude, he's got a giant dome. Like, bless that kid. I'm so, in one hand, I'm really kind of grateful that he was a preemie, because if he'd been in there any longer, like this would not have happened.
Right.
But it turns out his tube was not in the way that it was supposed to be in. And so when the shirt went down on his ears and it hit his ears, it was really causing him a lot of pain. But he had such delayed speech. Like, he didn't start putting words together. Like, I mean, he had maybe 25 words by like 2 and change. So like but I mean, like, he couldn't hear. Hence surgeries and tubes and preemies and life and blah, 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 blah. And now the kid won't shut up. He's just like his mother. But anywho, that was the hard part of my day. And so the OT that I worked with was like, okay, so what's going on? Is it like, is he having like, what part of this is like sensory? What part? Because, you know, I mean, I consulted with those who know more than me to help break down my point of system breakdowns and my daily routine. And it took us to the pediatrician's office, because I was like, look, it's just this ear and I don't know what about the shirt. And she looked in there and she was like, oh, it's the tube. And then poof, and like popped it out, and we had to go back in for more surgery. Ta-da! Yeah. But asking those questions, because then we come in and add the language for this point of system breakdowns.
Right. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's when I think I had a pretty good, from grad school in my clinics and in working with parents, because I had a professor in grad school who was Hanen trained. So obviously she imparted a lot of that, and she had us kind of basically doing Hanen style. I can't say we were being Hanen trained, but we, we're doing Hanen style things based on how she taught us and with the parents. So that gave me a really good grasp on the importance of it. And I think personally too, I just really believe in, like you said, like that functional piece versus, I don't know, looking at those developmental norms and all that stuff. Those are helpful. They're guides, but they're not always, an end all be all when we're working in EI or with preschoolers who, just need to have things functional so they get their needs and wants met. And so I know it sounds so naive sometimes. I feel like I say this a lot, but I really believe, like, if a child's not enjoying the situation, they're not going to grow from it. If we're like prompting the heck out of them because we really want them to imitate us signing eat, but there's no real joy in the interaction for them, then there's no point to try and force them to do this sign or, And so I think getting fully certified in parent training and really like understanding the importance of that and the importance of working alongside families. Like, we have the letters and the degrees behind our name, but sometimes I look at the situation rather than me even being a coach or a parent trainer, I'm like, I just feel like I'm kind of here to help facilitate, to make it easier when I'm not there. Yeah.
Yes, we get, folks, on a good week, you get an hour with the family and the child.
Right.
If it's a good week, right? I mean, and then you have the weeks where you walk in. I mean, like, I'm doing home-based services where like I walk in and like somebody's this one little boy every Monday, like clockwork, he poops. It's like, I swear on my life, I show up and like he poos. And so like today we did an in-service with his sped preschool on the AAC device and like what we've set up and like seeking to understand how we can like bridge this with his sped classroom. And he like pooped like clockwork. And the teachers were like, oh, wow, that's strong. And the mom was like, yeah, every once a week for the last 2 years, he poos when Michelle's around. And I'm like, glad to know that I stimulate him.
Yeah, right.
But like, that's a 15-minute process. So now I'm cut down to 45 minutes. But there are 168 weeks, 168 hours in a week. We get them 1 hour. That means the rest of the time, 167 hours, they are with the families or with other caregivers. Right. You cannot affect change in 1 hour a week if you're doing only direct service.
Right.
If you model direct service and you do like hybrid where you're modeling intervention and parent coaching, or if you're relying solely on parent coaching and then guiding them through, now you can affect change.
Exactly.
And you don't have to bring a bag of toys or anything that vibrates with you. Just saying.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
That's a conversation for another day.
It is. But I've talked to quite a few people now because you're East Coast, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, and I know that's, I think where you are, it's becoming a bigger thing.
No, do you know why? It's because they make them things down the street for me and it makes my heart unhappy. Sorry. Really, truthfully, it's 20 minutes from my house. I literally live in the epicenter where all things that vibrate and you can bite on are created. And
oh my gosh, how funny.
Yeah, the irony, right?
Well, but it's out here, like I feel like that whole bagless therapy thing of like not taking anything into the home is not quite, it's just not as, I don't hear about it as much from SLPs out here. And I'm always like, because Michelle, maybe it's just me being lazy, but I'm not good at like, I for sure want this and I want this toy and I want to bring this. Cause I do see a student for home hospital service. So I will go into his home, not right now, but typically. And, so it's very similar to, and I'm like, always like, he has stuff there. Like mom has like toys. Why do I need to bring anything else?
Yes.
And whatever
there.
And because whatever he has there is what mom's going to be able to use when I leave. Like,
thank you.
So,
yes.
Yeah. Like, why am I going to go crazy trying to plan when it's not my strength anyways? But
can I give you a round of applause? Like, you can't see me, but I'm like, yes. Thank you, Morris Maria. I called you Maria. Oh my God, we were getting ready to one of my best friends growing up was Maria Hinkle. And so whenever there's a Maria, I'm like, Maria, no, but we also called her Hinkle. We played softball together. She was first base to my shortstop. And oh my God, she had an arm, the likes of which like I took a ball to the face more than once because I just couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
She was a beast, dude.
How funny.
Navy. She went Navy officer.
Dang.
I wonder where Maria, she's a beast, dude. She knew her muchness. Okay, squirrel. Okay, so parent coaching and implementing collaboration for the school-based SLP.
Yeah.
Because this is where I struggle being the EI SLP. And like, I do have a couple of kids that are like school aged, but like I'm working with my counterpart in the school. So like, how do we go about making effective collaboration there through parent coaching?
I think, and that's something I will say I've had a harder time with that as well. And I'll bring up my little guy that I was going in the home for home hospital services because that family also had outside speech services. And it was I will say this, in this situation, this is the best example because I had regular meetings with the outside SLP, or I should say the EI SLP. And then I was working with mom, obviously on different days, but some days, we would try and schedule it so she could be there doing her session with him. And we would all just have one session together, which I really loved because I don't get to see that as much, or I don't see it as much. And I think what makes it hard for school-based SLPs, not that I'm trying to complain or anything. And I don't know what her caseload was like, but I think on my end, I'm on a contract day with however many kids on my caseload. And so sometimes for me in my brain, if somebody doesn't reach out to me, it's not always my first thought to reach out to them, just because I have, 40 plus kids that I would want to do that for. So this specific, not that I should, that's something I definitely want to get better at. If I find out they have outside services, it's like, okay, like I want to get in touch. But then, for on my end, there's the whole bureaucratic paperwork process of getting a release form and stuff. It feels a lot easier if that outside provider comes to me.
Yes.
Because then I can shoot them the email with the information. And so that part of it does make it easier. Another thing too, usually if students have, more intense needs, I'm not the case manager, so I'm not in charge of that paperwork. So that's another part of it that gets really messy, because I may want that contact with the SLP to collaborate. But if I'm not the case manager and I haven't been proactive about getting that paperwork, then I can't have that contact until that's done, I guess, because it's like a whole IEP release form where we can now, communicate basically because of HIPAA and everything like that.
And FERPA, you hit double layers, HIPAA and FERPA.
It's both, yeah.
Yeah, HIPAA is patient protection, y'all, and FERPA is student protection. That does extend all the way up into like universities, doctorate students as well. Yes. Yeah.
And so, but what I've noticed when I do have that, when there's solid kind of parent training and communication between the two speech pathologists, I've seen it so that way, I'll come in for my session with the little guy and mom is right away like, okay, so yesterday when the other speech pathologist came, we did this, and this. And so, she can tell me about it and I'll be like, oh, great. Like, show me. Because then what, maybe she doesn't see that I'm doing, but what I'm doing is kind of letting her just experience doing it on her own. And I'm right there, but she gets to teach me, which I know through, as the kind of learner I am, I don't really learn something until I get to teach how to do it. And that was one of the things, with Hannon that they kind of told us, like, don't let a parent leave the session without them showing you what you just told them to do. You don't just give people information and then expect them to walk away knowing how to do it. Like, give them the opportunity to do it and then kind of tell them what they were doing really well with and tell them how to keep, honing different skills. So that was really cool to be able to, kind of know, okay, the SLP and I were on the same page, but I would want to see what mom was doing after she was there and vice versa, kind of a thing. So, you show me what Miss Marie did, and then, you show me what I don't remember her name, what Miss Jones did or whatever her name was.
Susie Q. Sorry.
Susie Q.
My little,
there
Susie
we go.
Q and Billy Bob.
I love it. Your little names.
Yes. Those are my fictitious names. Susie Q and Billy Bob.
There you go. Yeah. So I think that's big. But I did, my CF year, I had an SLP consistently throughout the year. We had a student with a really severe stutter, and he was only he was a fresh 5-year-old. So he was a little guy, and it was really hard for him.
That is a great description of
fresh.
A fresh 5-year-old. Because you know what? They can be fresh. Let me tell you.
Well, and you know what we say too, in preschool world, when we get a new 3-year-old, we're like, he's a fresh 3. Like, this kid has never been in school. That's what it means. It's like they are little, right? Fresh 5-year-old. They're like a transitional kindergarten kid. They probably didn't turn 5 till like October. So, so yeah, he was, and for him, like, we needed to talk like twice a month. And so I think that, and then we would talk with mom too, and mom would come in and sit in on my sessions in the schools, which is pretty rare. But, mom was also really good. And I think what happened there too was the outside SLP told mom, because the outside SLP had the benefit of working in the schools first before being in a private practice. And she told mom, hey, you can ask to go observe his sessions as long as he's alone, and because that's now being, 4 years in and knowing like how to coach a little bit more about how to coach parents and talk to them and make them feel empowered. It's like, oh yeah, I would totally tell a parent, yeah, you go in. Like, it's so intimidating as the school-based SLP to have that. But I'm so glad that, another speech pathologist kind of guided mom to let her know, like, you have the ability to go in and see what's working for your son and what's, how the strategies she's using, and because she wanted me to model them for mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so I think that's something too that, I guess, to answer your question, as far as kind of bridging that gap between the outside provider and the school-based provider and the parent, like it's almost like thinking of it as like a team of 3 of us.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So in my world, I don't do that much language, like, truth be told. Like, if I do do language, it's language acquisition on like an AAC device, or like we're doing like first words, right? Or passing your vowel tribes, which is a whole other conversation. But I do so much feeding and swallowing, right? And I say feeding and swallowing, but really truthfully, like, when we finally get the new PFD code in October, an oropharyngeal dysphagia can cluster under PFD. So, like, let's just go ahead and put that out there. But with my little ones, I will, as the outside clinician, because I was an SLT, a speech language teacher, like a speech teacher back in Virginia, which is basically like an SLPA, a lifetime ago. That's what I did when I was going to grad school full time, which is absolutely for the birds. I don't know how I managed to muster the 2 simultaneously, but like, we did, and we survived, right?
Yeah.
So go team. But I, at the time when I was in the public schools, nobody told me that, like, we couldn't request for things. So, like, naive Michelle would just be like, to my SLP that signed off on everything, I was like, yeah, but, like, don't they need to see X, Y, and Z? And she goes, well, they can, but we have to say it we have to say it this way, because bless her heart, she was getting ready to retire. So I met this woman on her way out the door. So she didn't care and was like, yeah, they need to see ENT, send them to ENT. But like most people that work in the public schools, no, you can't just like send everybody everywhere, because the school district could inadvertently get caught footing the bill. So, like, long story short, I was thrown into a very unique situation inside of a unique situation where we sent people to genetics, to cardiology, and like, I didn't know that was not normal. And like, in retrospect, that woman, she was ballsy.
Yeah.
I don't know how to PC that even more. And I'm so blessed to have had her as a mentor, right?
Right.
Because I saw advocacy and engagement at a critical period in my 20s.
Yeah.
And by a woman who was in a fortunate position. So anywho, flash forward 15 years, like, how many more years later am I? And yeah, actually 15 years. Wow, that's crazy. And I understand that it is easier for me as the private practitioner to reach out to the school districts and hold these crucial conversations. And so here's what we do. Go in, have the family request the IEP meeting. And when you meet for the IEP meeting, this is not because it can be intimidating for both. This is not a blame game. This is not I'm doing this and it's working out better. You need to be doing this. What you're doing isn't working. It is we are coming at this from 2 different frames of points of mind.
Right.
You're more likely bound to write goals that are slightly more academic than mine, right? And that's okay, but we can meet in the middle to meet this child's functional language needs. And what I have found is when it's all about the words and the phrasings and seeking to understand and being humble, and when you go at it from those perspectives, you can reach goals and strategies and accommodations that meet language and feeding needs. And that is really, really cool, because it's for those kids that when we do get those opportunities, oh my God, they make so much more progress.
They do.
I'm just like reminiscing down memory lane of my kids that are like, learn self-feeding inside of 3 months. And you're like, yes.
Yeah. Well, but it's so true, and going back to, my full inclusion program that I love so much, because one of the things that really does make it work, it's so great, yes, to have the gen ed peers and the kids that have identified needs, in one class all year long, and like most of speech, it's like I might pull them out, but I do a lot of push in. And the reason I do that is because I go in to support the teachers. And I have a unique position too, where I don't see this big divide between even teachers and SLPs, because in my position, unlike the other SLPs in my district, but in the preschool world in my district, we are working with the teachers so much, and the collaboration is so crucial. And I see my students make the biggest gains, one, when they have access to their peer models, but two, when the adults can collaborate, when it's not this push and shove. I'm not walking in there saying, nope, I'm the speech expert, not you. I'm walking in there like, hey, try this. And, hey, what is working with you? Like, what's working for you today? Are you using his visuals? Are they working? Like, versus me saying, no, you're not using his visuals. You need to use his visuals. There's a difference, like you said, in the way we phrase things and how we walk into a room, and what that collaboration really looks like. And if we can do that with the other professionals, whether they're outside service providers in an IEP, or they're all the teachers and service providers in one classroom, the student is going to have the best, progress, I guess is the way I'm trying to say that.
Yes. No, absolutely 100% agree. We are on the same team. And this is why we do not engage as silo practitioners, and we get out of our silos and get on the other professional practice team, because that can include SLPs in multiple settings. So I got like a whole other for reaching out to the SLP that actually does the swallow study, but like we covered that one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So talk to me about gratitude. Wait, okay. I have to phrase this with Pack Dawson. Sorry. That's what we call ourselves, my husband and the boys, Goose and Bear, who have talk about nicknames, right? We play the Grateful game. So every morning, and we've done this for, I don't know, like maybe 4 years now, like really truthfully. On the way to school in the morning, we would say, today I am grateful for, and then I make them pick something, right?
Aww.
And it is really cool, because when you wake up, you're supposed to give joy in the morning. So when we're on our way to, for me to drop them off, it also gives me keen insight into how my kids are doing.
Yeah.
Because like, this is the pandemic and the transition, what we're asking our students and our patients to do, we've never asked.
Right.
It's never been asked of them, right?
Exactly.
And our kids they're as exhausted as we are juggling being full-time SLPs and girlfriends and wives and mothers and aunts and uncles and grands. Like, we got to check in with our tiny humans, and we play the I'm grateful game. So mommy always says, today I'm grateful, and this is mine. Today I'm grateful that God and Jesus love us and they want what's best for us. And today I'm grateful that mommy and daddy work hard to provide for our family. And then those are my stock ones. And then, because I always want them to hear that. And then we go into something specific, like today I am grateful. Ooh, we had chocolate waffles. Have you had the Kodiak chocolate waffles? They're like protein infused chocolate waffles.
No, I've had the regular ones, the Kodiak ones, but not chocolate.
Okay. The chocolate ones with strawberry jelly on top.
Oh my God.
That's like the way to start your day, baby.
Oh, heck
so, like, I am not proponing or selling of their product. I'm just saying my taste buds are happy about them things. So like, ta-da.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what Mama was grateful for today. And so we're Goose and Bear. But like, that's how we infuse gratitude in our life. So what is gratitude to you, and how can we implement gratitude and mindfulness into our speech therapy and parent coaching? That was 3 questions in one. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, don't be sorry. Just remind me if I miss anything. But what gratitude is to me, I mean, it's kind of like you said, it's infusing joy into your day. I think originally when I was like, back in like my early to mid 20s, it was like, kind of, that's young adulthood though. It's like, you're like, who am I? What am I doing in life? And all this stuff. And gratitude was something where I knew like that was the one place where I was like, well, I know I can always at the end of the day, like find something to be grateful for. And that's something that my mom, kind of like you're doing for Goose and Bear, but that's something my mom always had us as kids, like, coming back to. Like, there's always something to be grateful for. And she actually, you know, she gave me my first gratitude journal when I was in high school, and, you know, encouraged me to do it, like, to make a gratitude list once a day. And I, you know, I always knew, like, it did make me feel so good to do that. And so I always wanted to keep doing that. And I've kind of learned through the last couple of years, just in working with my students, and when I can go into my speech sessions thinking of the things I'm grateful for, you know, I'm less, even if it's like a crazy time of year or I'm having like a rough day, I can be more present with my students or with my people outside of work and things like that. When I am a little bit more focused on what I'm grateful for, it definitely, you know, especially in this last year, having that focus and really, really, like, some days, like, coming on strong with it for myself, because I've had a harder time maybe transitioning with all the changes in the last year, whether it's at work or just in life. It's definitely helped me be less fearful of change. I've been way more accepting. I think the last year's really even taken me a notch down as far as, like, I'm way less type A, because I just have accepted change is inevitable and I don't care to try to control it anymore.
No, but that's accurate.
Yeah.
Like, I had this goal of finishing my book so long ago, and, like, whenever I had to postpone it because, like, something else came up that was pressing for my family, like, I would feel like a failure.
Right.
And my husband was like, baby, the boys are out of school where half the day was taught in Mandarin, and I speak English and bad English. And so, like, as a parent, like, I felt like a failure that I couldn't teach them that half of their coursework, and I couldn't juggle all my professional hats, but I had to flip the script and focus on, okay, but, like, we're doing this well. Like, everybody's clean-ish. I mean, they're boys, so, like, are they ever really clean? Yeah, the answer is no.
No, and it's okay.
But is it? I don't know. They're
I don't
soccer
know.
cleats.
I mean, they're happy and thriving. So. But yeah, but it definitely, you know, it's helped me realize, like, what my priorities are, kind of like that. Like, do I need to focus on, you know, I don't know, do I need to be so, like, focused on little details, or do I, you know, I have all these great things going on right now, so I can focus on, you know, what there is to be grateful for. I don't know. But I think that I've seen it just help me shift again into being more present in the moments that that really matter to me. And it's something that now, you know, kind of like being a speech pathologist, and so on one hand, it's like using it in my professional career for me and for my colleagues, right? And, like, kind of trying to, you know, just always bring in something that we can be grateful for. The other day, we had a very frustrating meeting, district meeting. And afterwards, I was talking with a couple of my, you know, speech friends, and we all kind of went around the table and we vented. We had our, you know, we felt our feelings and everything. But something I've noticed in myself, and I'm not trying to brag, but I did kind of instinctively now, because I've just made such a point to do it, is I said, but you know what? I'm really grateful that we get to see our students and we're back to in person now. And, you know, and I realized in that moment, like, okay, because it totally shifted the conversation. Then we all started sharing funny stories about things that had happened in the first week of seeing the kids. And, you know, we talked about boogers, but it was hilarious. And
because you missed them.
As
Terrible as they are, you missed your booger stories.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the boogers are a little scarier now, but, but, you know, we've got our PPE and I'm feeling okay with it. But, you know, so yeah, so it just, the power I've seen it have with adults to shift a conversation, makes me really like, okay, how can I use this in my speech sessions with my kids? What kind of, you know, they're 3 to 5, but we can talk about things that make us happy. And we can, you know, and like you said, when you're your morning routine, like, what can we talk about that we're grateful for, or that makes us smile? I mean, there's so many ways you can shift, or you can change the language up just to meet where the child is at. But then, you know, and then I think, okay, but I have some students that maybe they're not speaking yet, and I might just talk about what makes me happy, or when they smile, I'll say that made you happy, and celebrate that and talk about it more. And so that's definitely a goal of mine, because I think you might have touched on this a little bit too. It's like that social emotional piece of their development at any age, not just in early intervention. But, when we talk about communication and social emotional, for me, that goes hand in hand. And the gratitude and the being present in everything, not only does it help us as clinicians to be really observing what our clients are maybe going through, and to be a little bit more empathetic and understanding, but also for them to kind of model and to help them have a way to find some grounding in times of frustration or things like that, or even when they're not frustrated and we just want to work on it.
We do this thing called the Faith Five at night, and we've variated from the original, right? But one thing that we do every night is, what was your low point today and what was your high point?
Mm-hmm.
And when we were littler, we would say, what was your sad point today and what was your happy point today?
Mm-hmm.
And for Bear, it was really helpful with his language expansion and narrative retelling, because we went through, and I mean, yes, I'm in that moment a mom, but I'm always an SLP, right?
Yeah.
I just can't be his SLP. So like when he said it and he was like, Bear eat Tootsies. I'm like, yes, Bear had cookies. And he would always side note to me, because he did not like me fixing his phonological processes.
Oh.
But, and he's got his mother sass, but like, like Bear loved his Tootsies. And so like, ta-da. But that was, and he always called himself Bear, but like Goose called himself Gooser. And like, that was just too cute. I couldn't fix it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But those were like, Gooser needs 4 cookies. And I'm like, Gooser needs 1. I can't complain about my jelly roll when we eat this much chocolate, waffles, and cookies. Come on, man. Like, but those are having those recaps. And those are something that, like, what I found was that when I was doing parent coaching with kids that were working like around the same developmental age as Boo, like those were opportunities to say, well, ask him, what was, start with low and end on your high. Like what made them sad today, or like what made you happy today? And like my little guy is doing his AAC device. Like Mom is so funny. Like he'll go back to, he likes to name his peoples, his village. So he goes back to the family page and he hits, and they see Uncle Billy Bob and Aunt Susie Q, and Mom's like, yeah, you saw Uncle Billy Bob on Sunday? And then he's like, Uncle Billy Bob, I love you, Uncle Billy Bob. Like he's like tapping it. And Mom's like, yeah. And Uncle Billy Bob threw you up in the air and scared Mommy, and you thought that was funny. And I'm like, but like language expansion, he's working on narrative retelling. And I'm just like so proud, because she is recapping and rephrasing like what happened. And that's a way to embed. That's his happy moment. That's their gratitude.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, my gosh, we're not out of the woods yet, but we are on the path.
Yeah.
And it's the opportunity to look back now and say, like, y'all, we survived this, maybe not unscathed, but in all of the heartache, we still have much to be grateful for as professionals and as individuals.
Right.
And our families are in the same boat, and our colleagues are there. So like we have the opportunity to journal it. Oh my gosh, Shauna, my girlfriend from Reno, Nevada, I've never met a journaler as much as she loves to journal. And she's volunteering on their board, but like you and her would get along like peanut butter and jelly.
Oh.
Or chocolate Kodiak.
There we go.
Cake with jelly. Huzzah.
Yeah.
That needs to be the new thing. Seriously, y'all go try that. But I was inspired by her because she was like, this is how I process everything. And that's a good mental health strategy for us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's what I realized probably when I started to really understand the importance of self-reflection, which was right in the middle of my grad school experience. Actually, I understood it because my same professor that was Hanon trained, this is my favorite part about my grad school program, was the fact that not instead of SOAP notes, but instead of having our SOAP notes, our, whatever documentation notes, we were doing, instead of doing it formally, she had us do it in the form of a self-reflective journal entry for our autism clinic. Cool. And it was through that I realized how much I loved what I was doing in the clinic and how important it was to be present. And I loved that method of because I'm a big I'm a big self-reflector. I love having a journal, and I always was the kid with the diary, taking it everywhere I went.
I used to call mine my diarrhea because I didn't know the difference. I'm sorry. Oh God,
I love that.
My dad never corrected me because he thought it was so funny. Wow.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Messed up memory in retrospect. Continue.
Right?
Sorry.
No, but it's so funny. But I really, really understood that part of how using maybe the gratitude lists, and just having a time to self-reflect, because that's what I used that time for. It was like, okay, before I go to bed, I'm going to write 10 things I'm grateful for. And after kind of learning how important self-reflection was for me as a student clinician, I was like, you know what, I'm going to let my mind flow a little bit more with these gratitude lists. And it's very telling sometimes for me. It's a very good way for me to check in with myself. And so why not have that skill be something, a little bit more and that's why I talk about it so much on Instagram, because I want everybody to see, even if you don't like to write, the fact and the importance in taking time for yourself to sit and maybe think about what you're grateful for, and then let your mind kind of go into maybe different things. I love that lows and highs thing, because it helps us understand what we're feeling and maybe why we're feeling it. Because for little kids, I know emotions are big and they're hard and they're learning them. But for many adults that I know, including myself, emotions can be big and hard. And so it's really important to have those kind of, I guess, strategies, to help with our mental health. And so, yeah, I like kind of trying to use those things with my little ones.
I like the food log. And yes, I have my families utilize a food log so that we can track the kiddos' progression of foods.
Yeah.
But when you look back after 3 months of data collection and see where you are, as a parent, that is so empowering. That is seriously so empowering. And I'll tell them when it's a good day, star it, put a heart next to it, write today was a good day.
Yeah.
And then look back, and then when you're like, oh my God, yeah, today was a good day, but wow, look at where we were 6 months ago. And I mean, today's a great day in comparison. I mean, then your new rough days still are better than what you thought what a good day was. And that's really empowering. Y'all, joy can be found even in the midst of all this. You just gotta seek it, but it promise that it's there. She's always just right there. So yes. Okay. Is there anything else that you want any other pearls of wisdom, my dear friend?
Oh my goodness. I don't think so. I just feel so, it's funny. I was so exhausted today. And then now we've talked and I just feel so re-energized. I love it. I love talking about this stuff. And I think that's really it's it really shows you, you could be exhausted on 5.5 hours of sleep and 3 IEP meetings in one day. And then, you just sit and talk about things you're grateful for, or even just have a conversation about it. And it really does help your energy.
Put it in perspective. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have found that when we are open about our flaws and our cracks, Lord knows I got them, but when we're open about them, we can let our joy shine through. And so I know I've struggled with finding gratitude. And because I have been frustrated off and on throughout the year, but it's a choice. And that's what I did when Boo wiped out on the soccer fields and skinned his knees. I'm like, son, it's a flesh wound. It ain't that bad. You haven't lost a pint of blood. You're okay. And like, you know, we circle back. He just banged on the door because he heard me talking about him.
How cute.
But like when we talk about that, and then I'm like, but you're okay. And flip it. You're choosing to focus on the negativity. Let's focus on the good thing. You kicked the ball. Like it didn't quite make it to the net, but like he kicked it, and that's huge. And choose the joy. Okay, squirrel, because he's gonna come in here and start pouting. Okay. But if someone wants to learn more from you, where can they go? How can they reach you?
Probably the quickest way to reach me is messaging me on Instagram, so @thanksmorris. And then I also have a website, thanksmorris.com, where you can join my email list, and I send out weekly newsletters just with updates, you know, anything new happening with the gratitude journals, or I also send out in those newsletters weekly gratitude prompts to, you know, if you just want to whip out a piece of paper and have some self-reflection time. So that's a part of that as well. But I also, you know, I try to share those as regularly as I can on Instagram too.
Awesome. Everybody out there, as always, thank you for joining us today. Be sure to check us out on @First Bite Podcast on Instagram, and check us the First Bite Podcast Facebook page. And, you know, we love it when y'all leave us an Apple Podcast review. So be sure to go over there and tell us what part of First Bite you're grateful for. And seriously, thank y'all for being part of our First Bite journey.
Feeding Matters guides system-wide changes by uniting caregivers, professionals, and community partners under the Pediatric Feeding Disorder Alliance. So what is this alliance? The Alliance is an open access collaborative community focused on achieving strategic goals within 3 focus areas: education, advocacy, and research. So who is the Alliance? It's you. The Alliance is open to any person passionate about improving care for children with a pediatric feeding disorder. To date, 187 professionals, caregivers, and partners have joined the Alliance. You can join today by visiting the Feeding Matters website at www.feedingmatters.org. Click on PFD Alliance tab and sign up today. Change is possible when we work together. That's a wrap, folks. Once again, thank you for listening to First Bite, fed, fun, and functional. I am your humble but yet sassy host, Michelle Dawson, the All Things Peds SLP. This podcast is part of a course offered for continuing education through speechtherapypd.com. Please check out the website if you'd like to learn more about CEU opportunities for this episode, as well as the ones that are archived. And as always, remember, feed your mind, feed your soul, be kind, and feed those babies.